Hello, my name is Ingrid Johnson. I'm a Bible school graduate and an exercise physiologist here in Encinitas, California. This channel is for you if you are Christian and you want to navigate through life better and make good decisions. I find that making good decisions requires you to be solid on the basic principles of God's Word. Today's basic principle is going to be about talking, about speaking. So if you have, according to Romans 10:9 and 10, confess with your mouth and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, that's Jesus Christ, you are saved. So we begin there. Now in Proverbs, wisdom literature of the Bible, in Proverbs 18 verse 21, it says, death and life are in the power of the tongue. So many people believe that your thoughts attract things to your life. But that's not really what the Bible here says. It says that death and life are in the power of the tongue. So you can think and not say something, and it does not produce the same result of life and death, okay? The second thing is that I hear many people talk about this verse and say, well, you just want to speak life-giving words. You want to speak encouragement to people, and don't discourage people because it just produces, more death. And that's a little bit kindergarten, I think. I think that the Bible goes much deeper than that. The Bible is a treasure. It's something that we want to continually to dig through and dig deeper. We all know the basics. Say and speak positive things and don't speak negative things. So death and life are in the power of the tongue. The first thing that I find that God hates is complaining. So using your mouth to complain is definitely produces death. So 1 Corinthians 10:10 says, and do not murmur is the same word as complaining, in unwarranted discontent, as some of them did, that would be Israelites, and were destroyed by the destroyer in the desert. So we're going to go back and look at that. But the murmuring and the being discontent against God or against men of God, really what you're saying is that you could do better than God, that God's not doing good enough, and that's idolatry. So that is the seriousness really of the murmuring. Now we look at, first time we see the word murmuring, where the Israelites murmured, was in Exodus chapter 15 and verse 21. What's interesting about this is that Israelites had just left Egypt. They had just crossed the Red Sea. 3 days later, 3 days, not more than 3 days later, they're getting thirsty. And they don't know where the water is coming from. And they say to Moses, well, would that we have died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt. And so they started to murmur against Moses. Because of what? Because of drink. So Moses gets water out of the rock. Everything's great. Everybody's happy. And they start to murmur again. Well, would that we have died by the hand of the Lord in the hand of Egypt, because we have no food. So God supernaturally feeds them with manna and they have food again. Not much longer later, they are thirsty again and they ask for Moses, they murmur against Moses and ask for water. And that's when Moses strikes the rock twice, and another famous story. Further into the Numbers, we find Miriam murmured against Moses for having married a woman that apparently she didn't like, and she was struck with leprosy immediately for 7 days till she repented. And also the Israelites complained and murmured against Moses when the spies that were sent to the land of promise brought back a bad report. Again, a no-no. Do not speak negatively of what God has called a positive, and do not murmur and complain. So what God basically did and was that he was very angry, and the people that murmured died in the wilderness. And I found that very interesting because in Numbers, you can find this in Numbers chapter 14 and verse 29. And it says, how long shall I put up with this evil congregation who murmur against me? I have heard the complaints of the Israelites, which they're making against me. And he says that you will fall, your bodies will fall in the wilderness. Even all those who were numbered among you from 20 years and up. And they will fall in the wilderness. And one translation says, or a couple of them says, carcasses. And that would be like the carcasses of an idolatrous image. Because that is idolatry, to be complaining. And it doesn't just say they will die in the wilderness. Their carcasses will literally fall down. So that the idolatry image will literally just get crushed and shattered in the wilderness. God did not allow the people that murmured into the promised land. So there is an example of speaking death into a situation, or in this case, into their life. But God is very angry about complaining. Now, to speak life into a situation, I want to take you to a wonderful verse in Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse 19. So Deuteronomy 30 verse 19, and this is where Moses talks again to the people of Israelites, and he says to them to choose. And 30:19. I call heaven and earth as a witness against you today, that I've set before you life and death, the blessing and the curse. Therefore choose life, in order that you may live and your descendants. So to choose life is to choose life-giving words, and the most life-giving word is God's word, agreeing with what God says is true. So that's life-giving words, and stay away from complaining, because those are death-giving words. So choose life. Always choose life.